This is Bud Rebel, and you're at the Bud Rebel Show. Today I'm interviewing Jared Millard, who is a producer, a writer, and a director. Is that correct? Like,
That pretty much sums it up.
you're also a veterinarian on the side too, I was told. That part time?
Yeah, veterinarian, almost a veterinarian, lawyer, almost. Yeah, lots of different almost
Almost.
and partial stuff. Yeah.
I'm almost the president. Yeah, not me too.
Exactly. Yeah, almost world leader. Yeah.
So, Jared, before I get any further, I'm going to ask you a really tough question. Hope you're ready for it.
Okay.
What was your favorite horror movie you ever seen?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Get Out because I loved Get Out. If that counts as horror, I don't watch a ton of horror, but that's one of my favorite horror-ish films.
It's funny you mentioned Get Out because I did love Get Out until like the end got a little bit convoluted. Everything was thrown in
Yeah,
quickly.
that's
It was
fair.
cool because I like horror. But, you're right. Sometimes it gets very typical, but I'm into I like the suspense and I like the surprises that come out of the whole genre, you might say. So you're a producer, a writer, and director. Of those three titles, which do you rather be called?
I'd say writer, director, and an occasional actor. But I think for me, it's the idea of like taking a project from 0 to 100. Seeing it all the way through. So I'd say writer, director.
And what types of genre do you like to write? Comedy,
I
horror?
Yeah, I tend to write drama thrillers, I would say. So I just finished like a sci-fi dystopian, short film that I wrote directed. So I tend to do original narratives that are, have some social impact component, some social issue or political component. Just given my background, so it usually speaks to that. But I like to do thriller, sci-fi dramas. Tend to be in that space.
And you're saying that you write. How long does it take you to write something? Like when you start, like, get inspired by something.
Yeah, I mean, it'll take me. It depends on the project. If it's a short, I like to marinate for a little while in my head, and then when I go to a page, it can take me a couple days. If that. I like to if I have the structure in place, then I can go pretty quickly, and then it's rewrites as every writer knows. You're rewriting all the way through the shoot day.
And the shorts that you do now, shorts. Do they have any way to make money? I mean, you just had a charity,
Yeah,
your heart, or
it's a good question. I think it's a space that is growing. They're getting more respect and attention. Some of the Oscar nominations that were just announced for live action shorts are fantastic projects that I hope will elevate those filmmakers. But yeah, it's hard to make money. There's not many places to make money. I think the good thing of them is you can make them relatively quickly with a smaller budget. The bad thing of them is if they don't get seen, and if they don't get exposure, or if they don't get to big festivals, it's hard to make money and get them elevated to make a feature, make pilots, etc.
how long is the longest short that you made? How long is the longest short you made, and how long is the shortest short you made?
Sure. So the shortest short is this film One 2017, which we did we as the industry calls it a oneer. So it was a one shot, and it was like 8.5 minutes or so. The longest was like 20 some minutes, 22 minutes. Which definitely tends to be in the longer end of what festivals will think of as a short. But shorts can go up to 40 minutes, as you know. So there are some good longer shorts for sure.
When you're talking about the production of a short, how long,
Mhm.
the time-wise, does it take to make it?
Oh yeah, most of my shorts I've made in 2 to 3 days over a weekend. Sometimes we overestimated or underestimated. Usually underestimated. So usually we're adding a pickup day, but usually 2 days, 3 days, sometimes 3.5. But for the most part, if you have a talented team, a team well, I've been able to crank them out in 2 to 3 days.
Now, I'm correct about this. You were from New York, and you decided
Yeah.
to go to California because you decided you wanted to do more riots, earthquakes, and acting maybe on the side.
Yeah, that's all correct. Yeah, so I grew up in New York City in a place called Roosevelt Island there, and then college, law school, grad school, all on the East Coast, lots of school, and then yeah, about 5 years ago, started figuring I probably end up somewhere in the entertainment space. I traded the snow for the warmth and the fires and the earthquakes.
You live in Roosevelt Island, so you took that
Yeah,
back and forth. Now,
yeah.
people don't know Roosevelt Island really is New York City. It's just like a little place that's outside the world. I went to
Yeah.
Amsterdam. if the train breaks down, you're like in like a world that no one can control. In other words, right?
Yeah, for a long time. And there's the bridge to Queens, but until they added the F train, I think in 92, 93, it was pretty, isolated. Yeah, most New Yorkers don't even know where it is. Yeah.
What's the big symbol of Roosevelt other than you? Like, are you the biggest thing that came out of Roosevelt Island?
I'm one of the biggest things. No, Sarah Jessica Parker actually lived there for a long time. My dad, awkwardly one time, one time my dad saw her in an elevator in the island, and she lives there, and I don't know if she still lives there, but it was awkward, and she was like, leave me alone. But yeah, that was that's one of the folks.
They have that big sign, Sarah Jessica Parker, Olympia. That's it.
Exactly.
There's a big kick for this whole word diversity.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
To me, diversity, first of all, it means having different types of folks in the room, different backgrounds, sexual identities, orientations, gender identities, ethnicities, et cetera. But I think diversity doesn't quite go far enough. And so I tend to think about inclusion and equity, which my nonprofit called Movie Karma that I started, that's what we do. So we fight for inclusion, representation, and equity in the industry, meaning not only are there people of different backgrounds and races and religions, et cetera, in the room, but we're actually including them in the conversation, and we're including them in opportunity, and we're giving them equal opportunity, equitable opportunities to fulfill their full potential, right? So diversity is, I think, a step in the right direction. The industry's talking a lot about it, but I like to see, our nonprofit likes to see action towards inclusion and equity.
Now, I have a little different take on it.
Yeah,
a little different take. So I lean to the right, way over to the right, like over the bridge to the right, like way over. I don't think Hollywood has many people, including us, in their portfolio. And there's a big diverse audience out there. If you want to reach everyone, you've got to have different views and different ways of seeing the world. So if you're talking about having inclusive space, it should be a space with all different people talking.
Yeah.
Is that happening? Or do you think it's more like, to be honest with you, do you think it's more decentralized what they think is diverse versus really what is diverse?
No, I mean, I think that is an issue. I think it still tends to be of political persuasions, folks tend to be a bit of an echo chamber. And I having a political background myself and worked for political candidates, like I think there's a lot of value in having diverse political perspectives, and that's something that isn't exactly the case right now in Hollywood. So I agree. I think there's value in reaching those audiences. As you said, there's a huge market of folks who might have different political views than a typical.
It's funny you picked that up. I was at the Republican convention in Philadelphia, and I left saying, I'm glad they're Democrats almost, because I just don't want to just talk to myself, basically. I don't really just want to hear people. I like to hear the give and take. I like to understand where people come from, not always, and challenge myself and challenge my thought pattern. Maybe, wait a minute, this is something interesting. Can I argue this point? And I think we get in our echo chambers, like you said, really well. That we get in echo chambers and we don't grow as people. We just live that way. It's actually boring. It's actually not. I used to watch like Sean Hannity. I get bored of him. It's just the same thing over and over again. I mean, I might agree with him. It's boring. I just need my mind expanding. And so I'm just hoping, if there's a way that people can just talk, like we're having a civilized conversation. I just don't understand why that can't happen. More and more people. If you mention Trump, they just walk out. They get shaky. I used to have a cousin that used to shake when I mentioned it. It was like I was the person's name. So we have to get past it, I think, right, and have the conversation and learn from each other.
Yeah, we do, and there has to be give and take. But that, of course, it has to be in both directions, all directions. But absolutely, we have to listen. And the country is incredibly divided, as we know. The fact that we have 50-50 votes in the Senate. I think it's not a good thing for the democracy. And so I completely agree. And films can be that universal language. Like we see great films from all over the world through our film festival that we run through our nonprofit. We talk to lots of filmmakers, and that's the power of cinema. The power of film is you can reach folks of many different political persuasions, of any language, et cetera. So that I would agree with. I'd like to see more of that.
The truth of the matter is, a film person that likes watching film. I like watching a lot of shows, different type of shows on Netflix. I just want to see that. I think the general public can see a show that entertains them.
Mm-hmm.
they work hard, they're tired, they don't want to be like lectured to. In general, they want to be entertained. They want it to be fun. Now, don't get me wrong. You as a filmmaker, you as an artist, you want to have your vision out there, and you want to have your creative point.
Hmm.
But you could do that subtly, and sometimes you do
Yeah.
it subtly, and you get a point across a lot better than being right in someone's face.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, films like, Black Panther, Get Out, we just talked about, like, some of these films I think do an incredible job, in my view, of entertaining and engaging, and yet there's a message there. And I think whether you agree with the message or not, to your point, if you're engaged in that story and that narrative and those characters' journeys, then you're involved, and then I think you can be moved, and film can change you and open your eyes maybe a little bit. And look at a film like Parasite, which I personally loved, and opened a window into a world that a lot of us, at least in the US, don't get to see, right? Which is like life in South Korea for
Right.
those who are very poor. And so that's the power of cinema. That's what it does at its best, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you bring out great movies like 12 Years. I think it's 12 Years a Slave. I think we're
Yeah. Yeah.
no movie that I ever felt captured slavery so well as that movie. People talk words, but movies make you take you to that place. All the Holocaust movies, all the movies about certain people's rights and so forth, they take you to that world that they people live in. And they do it, if they do it right, they do it subtly. So just like
Yeah.
if they do it wrong, you're being lectured and you're bored. It's all over the top, and it's and it's not even part of the story. Again, I think The Escape is the whole thing. People just been through the whole thing. I'm curious. You're talking about the Oscar nominations. This is the first time I don't think I've seen any one of the movies nominated. I don't think I've seen any. Have you seen them? The movies nominated at all?
I have well, partially because I'm in the industry, and we've interviewed a number of the actors from films like Minari or One Night in Miami or Judas and the Black Messiah. So I've in part had to watch some of them, and I wanted to watch most of them. But yeah, I mean, that can be the good thing of the Oscars, in that they elevate some films that maybe folks didn't get to see or don't know about that are really good. I think a film like Minari or One Night in Miami, some of these films I think are fantastic, and folks should see them. But yeah, there's also other films, every year in the Oscars that maybe aren't terrific, and also people don't know about and maybe shouldn't be seen, right? So that occasionally happens too. But there are some great films in this slate, and I encourage people to look up, films like The Father, which is about dementia, and a father's battle with dementia. So there's some really powerful stuff.
Sound very entertaining. If you think of all the Oscar nominated movies, which is like the most entertaining? I'm sorry. I remember when La La Land was coming out, and I was so psyched. They were like, we won it, and they took it away. I was so mad. I was watching Oscars because it was just a fun movie, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the singing, it was like the old taking you back to. It was just dazzling. To me, it's wow. And it's just like, of those movies out there, which is the most entertaining? What would you say? Let's just seen all of them. Or are they all like so sad?
I mean, yeah, a film like Nomadland, that's not a banger, as the Brits might say. Like, it's not an action film, right? So if you want to see beautiful cinematography, watch Nomadland, and a great performance by Frances McDormand. But if you want to be entertained, I would say like Judas and the Black Messiah is a fantastic film on HBO Max right now. Fantastic. And just an important historical moment that a lot of people don't know about, involving the Black Panthers, the 60s. There's just a lot there that I think people don't know about, and it's very entertaining. It's just a great film, great performances.
All right. So what are you up to now? You're doing short. Tell me about you. What are you doing to create it?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been, with a couple other projects that I'm hoping to make this year, that I'm writing, directing, a couple pilots, a couple more shorts, hopefully a feature soon. We just finished a short called Distance, which is going through the festival circuit, doing pretty well, which is a sci-fi dystopian piece inspired by the pandemic that we just went through. So yeah, hopefully more stuff, and looking to continue to act as well. On top of that, I have my nonprofit Movie Karma. So folks, if they're interested in some of the things we just talked about, inclusion, representation in the industry, it's movikarma.org. So we do lots of stuff. And always,
want to do it.
Yeah, it's MOVI Karma. So Movie Karma without the E. Moviekarma.org, and you can see what we do. The festival we have is called the Show for a Change Film Festival. You'll see that all on the site, and you can, if you're a filmmaker, let us know, or if you know filmmakers that need attention, we're always happy to hear about them.
And you will consider people from the right also, all the way to the right to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're always up for a good conversation. If you're doing something impactful and you're making some good stuff, like we're happy to talk to you.
That's great. That's great. Now, is this a career where you can make a living, or do you have to raise the leeway tables? And are you able to do this full time now? Or is it something you have to do, just like try to do? How is this world really like?
It's a great question. So the answer is it's really hard. It's one of the reasons I started my nonprofit. I didn't go to a film school. My parents were not in film or entertainment. So for a lot of us even harder, right? If you didn't grow up in the industry. I started my nonprofit in part to do this full time. So to really raise money, not only support, the work I want to do, but the mission of the work in the industry. As we talked about with short films, they're not really making a return. So, I think for someone like me, until you make your first feature or you get, development deal with a studio or network, it can be hard to make a living. So I definitely tell folks, like, have a good plan B, but, don't give up on your dreams, but also just have something that is a little steadier, depending on your financial needs. So you're not giving up after, 6 months, a year, or you're in credit card debt, which what some folks, face for sure.
So you told your family, I'm going to become an actor?
For me, I did. So I'm fortunate that my mom is a cinephile. She loves movies. She's, she could tell you every film from the Casablanca to, Gone with the Wind, all these old movies that she loves. So I grew up in that space, and she's very supportive. My dad was as well. But I've taken kind of a circuitous journey. So I went to law school, as I mentioned. I worked in politics. Started a nonprofit before this one. So I've learned at least like the stories that I've been exposed to through my work in the real world. That's been fodder, if you will, for my filmmaking. So that's been my journey. But I know a lot of folks who, when they're 12, 13, 14, want to be a filmmaker, and that's what they do. That wasn't my story.
Now, you said, I guess the political angle sometimes is acting a little bit. You find that sometimes the best. It's funny. I know you're probably not as we share different political views, but it's an interesting thing how Trump was sort of an actor, but I don't know how much is acting, how much is real. And some people think that politicians are basically actors, that they steady their lines. It's not always. It's not that line is not so cut and dried. It's a little. Yeah.
It's not at all. Yeah, Ronald Reagan was an actor, famously. Arguably not the best actor, but yeah, I think that was food for someone like him. Of course, I mean, there's theater in politics. We see it in the Congress all the time, right? I mean, it's very hand in hand. In fact, I wrote a feature that I still want to make about a politician who deals with a bunch of stuff in LA, set in LA, but yeah, I was inspired largely by my political work because there isn't much of a separation, and there is certainly a lot of performative stuff in politics, as you know.
The people that make it in the top are the ones that can act the best, also. Sometimes
you do. Yeah. I mean, you need kind of a combination, right? You need to be able to, I think, have a quality of being grounded and authentic, but also you need to be able to perform to some degree, right? I mean, if you're not feeling good that day, you can't be, with some exceptions in the political world, you can't be, cranky and nasty to folks, so you kind of have to balance the two, I think, just like any profession. But
it's funny, I just remember now that Cuomo got an award this year for his acting talent. That's pretty funny. That's the first time I thought about that, because of his acting talent. It's really funny. So Jared, other than acting, what else do you do? Like, what other activities do you like to do?
I have two rescue dogs, so we're out, and my husband and I are out and about with them a lot. Hiking, especially during the pandemic, just being outdoors has been my saving grace. Looking forward to getting back to traveling. But no, I mean, I spend most of my days, sort of toiling away with the nonprofit work and the film work. So kind of trying to find time between the creative and the and the nonprofit. That's most of how I spend my time. And if I can get time outside as much as I can and travel as this pandemic hopefully winds down, that'll be the goal.
This pandemic has really hurt your whole.
Yeah, it's been brutal. A lot of my friends are, been out of work. People who, like assistant directors, a couple low line crew, costume designers, et cetera, have been hit really, really hard because they're job to job normally. So they're completely out of work. Yeah. And it's, hopefully things will pick up in 2021, but it's been brutal. And I think also the isolation that creative folks are experiencing is, I would argue, sometimes the worst of it, because you're struggling to create alone or over Zoom, and that's pretty brutal.
But I think the writer gives you a little more time to write.
It does. No, it does. Yeah. One of my friends said to me, I think it was last, March, April, May, when the pandemic really hit. I was, pumping out short films after short film writing, and she mentioned that to me. That I think a lot of us are kind of going through a creative renaissance, maybe, at least as writers. But after a while, it's nice to try to show your work to someone and meet with people, meet with team, meet with the actors, and that's been harder.
I think that in the next years or so, that the movies and the productions are going to be out, and all the art should be so phenomenal because people had a lot more time to work it out.
Yeah. I think so too. No, I think so too. I think we're going to see some really interesting stuff, and probably a lot of pandemic inspired stuff. I think we're also going to see stuff like, I mentioned No Man Land, which is this film nominated for an Oscar, a bunch of Oscars. And, that film's really about traveling. It's about sort of traveling around the Western United States. And there are films like that, I think, that are going to get a lot more attention because people want to do those activities. So it's a bit of escapism, right? That maybe 2 years ago we wouldn't be interested in.
Well, Jared, listen, 5 years from now, where are we going to see Jared Miller?
Hopefully you'll see Jared, as a well-known writer director doing some innovative stuff and some engaging, entertaining stuff, but it also has hopefully a meaningful message for folks and is inclusive in every way in terms of how we do it. But also, I'd love to continue my acting work and my nonprofit work. For me, it all kind of is hand in glove in terms of how do we make the world a little more representative, a little more just and equal. That's been mostly my life mission. So hopefully I can do that on a bigger scale, bigger stage in the industry.
Well, Jared, it's a pleasure speaking to you. And
Yeah.
It's always great to speak to someone from different points of views and different angles. And
Yeah.
so let's keep the communication going throughout the world. Let's keep us talking instead of talking from one network to the other network. Maybe we'll even have them talk to each other once in a while.
No, I love that. Thanks for what you're doing with that. I'm all for it. So the more folks can listen and have those conversations, we'll all be better off. I've no doubt.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Jared. Continued success. God bless, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Thank
you so much. Yep.
you.
Bye-bye.